We have about 200 registrants for today's webinar. Clearly an important topic, talking about Roth conversions. I'm Alex Harmson, CEO and founder of PortfolioPilot, your personal AI financial advisor. We're putting on this webinar series together with the amazing Doug Carey, president of WealthTrace. And this is the second in a 4-part retirement planning series. If you missed the one from 2 weeks ago, it's on our YouTube channel at PortfolioPilot on YouTube. And after this session, we will send you a link to the 2 other webinar series. If there's attendance like there is today, then probably we'll do a lot more than 4. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah. Yep. I hope so. It'd be great.
I'm excited to dig into this. We'll keep it relatively short. There's a Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. Open that up, ask questions. The goal here is to do about 20-25 minutes of Doug giving this presentation, giving some real world examples, and then we're going to save 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions. And so pop them in. You can also upvote other questions if it's applicable to you, so that it ranks automatically for us here. Okay, Doug, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Alex. And thanks everybody for attending today. As Alex said, my name is Doug Carey. I'm a chartered financial analyst and I'm the CEO and founder of WealthTrace. Today, we will be talking about Roth IRA conversions and when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. Some quick disclosure stuff. This presentation is for educational purposes only, and investment decisions, of course, involve risk, and you should not interpret any statements I make here today as a recommendation or investment strategy. So a little bit more about me. As I said, I'm a chartered financial analyst. I was previously director of fixed income products at FactSet. I am the CEO and founder of WealthTrace. A little about WealthTrace. WealthTrace empowers individuals to build their own financial plan. It has advisory level accuracy. You can link your investment accounts. You can view your updated account holdings every day. You can run powerful Monte Carlo simulations and other scenarios such as Roth conversion scenarios, which of course we will look at today. And this is in partnership with PortfolioPilot.com. They are your personal AI financial advisor, and they can help with tax optimization and investment advice. So who's this presentation for exactly? Well, it's for a lot of people. If you have an IRA, a traditional IRA, a 401k, or any retirement account, basically where you make or made tax deductible contributions, this webinar is worth listening to. If you want to pay less in taxes when you start withdrawing money from your retirement accounts, or maybe you're concerned that tax rates are going to go up in the future. By tax rates, I mean legislated tax rates, so Congress passing a bill that will raise future tax rates. Or you might want to leave your heirs money, your retirement money, tax-free. The agenda today, I'm going to talk about why you would want to convert to a Roth IRA. Here are a few quick reasons. 1, you might be able to pay lower lifetime taxes. It could allow you to have more overall money in your later years. It's a hedge against higher legislated tax rates. It's insurance against a spouse passing away earlier than expected. And you can also leave your retirement money tax-free to your heirs. We're going to talk about, and this is really important, when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense to convert to a Roth IRA. I'm briefly going to touch on backdoor Roth IRA conversions, and then I will show you a case study that I ran in the WealthTrace software of a couple that might want to convert to a Roth. And then, of course, I will take questions at the end. All right, start with the basics. What is a Roth IRA? A Roth IRA is just a retirement account that grows tax-free, but you contribute money after tax. So you don't get a tax deduction when you put the money in. Okay, that's the big distinction. All right, but when you withdraw the money from a Roth, you do not pay taxes on it, as opposed to a traditional IRA, which you do pay taxes on withdrawals. Some key characteristics, as I said, you contribute money after you've already paid taxes on it. The growth is tax-free inside the Roth. The withdrawals are tax-free if you're at least 59 and a half, and the account has been open for 5 or more years. There are no required minimum distributions for a Roth, which is very nice. A required minimum distribution, in case you don't know, is when you turn, for most people turn 75, you're forced by the federal government to begin taking about right around 4% out per year because they want you to pay taxes finally, because on a regular IRA or 401k, you haven't paid taxes yet. So they want some of their tax money, right? But a Roth, there are no RMDs at all. So what's a Roth IRA conversion? All right, this is where you move money from a traditional IRA or a 401k into a Roth IRA. What you're doing is you're changing the tax character of that money. So when you convert, you're taking the money out of the traditional IRA or 401k and you pay taxes as if it's a withdrawal. Okay, so you pay taxes on whatever you convert. You're paying ordinary income taxes on it. And once it's in the Roth, it grows tax-free, and the withdrawals are tax-free as well. All right, so the downside is you pay taxes during the conversion when you convert. The upside is you don't pay taxes later when you withdraw it. There are no RMDs, and it does grow tax-free. All right, I do want to give a quick blurb on backdoor Roth IRA conversions. You may have heard of these, and it can get a little confusing. To be honest, this is a topic unto itself, but I just want to get this out there as to what these things are. A backdoor Roth IRA conversion involves making a contribution to an IRA that's not deductible, okay? This is after tax. And then you convert that into a Roth. All right, so you can do this up to $7,000, $8,000 if you're 50 or older. Now, why would anybody do this? Really, it's for this main reason. Higher earners whose income exceeds a certain amount, as you see here, $165,000 for a single person, $246 if filing jointly. You can't contribute to your Roth at all. There are phase outs for Roth contribution. So this is a way around that. You can do the backdoor Roth and essentially contribute to the Roth itself. That's why it's called backdoor. There's kind of a middleman in this. Okay, that's a backdoor Roth. There's also something called a mega backdoor Roth. This might be the one that most people have heard of. There's a well-known story. A guy named Peter Thiel, very wealthy tech investor, executive. The story is this. When he started investing in tech stocks years ago, when companies like Google and Amazon and others had very low stock prices, and he had a share of a lot of these tech companies, he did a mega backdoor Roth. So he put the money, the shares, into a Roth, and they got to grow tax-free, and the money literally grew into billions of dollars. He owes no taxes on any of that money, if you can believe that. This is a hotly debated technique, let's just say. Some people hate it, some people say it's great. But the way that this is done, and the way that he did it, is you can contribute up to $70,000 or $77,500 if you're 50 or older into a Roth account using your 401k. All right. So your 401k must allow this. They don't all allow it. If your 401k does allow this, what you can do is make after-tax contributions to your 401k and then move that to a Roth. The reason it's called mega as opposed to the regular backdoor is the amount is bigger. The amount is bigger because 401ks allow a lot more money to be contributed to them, right? Up to $70,000 or even more if you're over 50 years old. That's how he did it. He was contributing $70,000 or whatever it was back then every year, and then it grew exponentially because of the companies he was in. All right, that's enough about backdoor Roth. Let's talk about when you might want to convert to a Roth IRA. There are a few reasons you might want to do it. There are a few criteria that are usually involved here. One is your tax rate is low when you retire. This is typical. Most people, to some are very surprised by this. Their federal income tax rates plummet when they retire because they don't have a salary anymore, right? A lot of them, their federal tax rate's zero. However, it doesn't last usually. Their tax rates will increase later on for a few different reasons. One, they might be withdrawing from their retirement accounts, which triggers that's income, and that can put them in a higher tax bracket. Two, required minimum distributions kick in. That also is taxable income, which can push a person into a higher tax bracket. Three, Social Security and pensions begin at some point, and that can be taxable income as well, which also can push you into a higher tax bracket. Same thing with state taxes. States with steeply progressive tax systems like California can also push you into a much higher tax bracket once your income begins to rise based on these items in the middle here, right? The withdrawals from retirement accounts plus Social Security and pensions. There's also the fear of higher tax rates imposed by Congress. The deficit is almost $2 trillion today, expected to hit $2.5 trillion in 10 years. A lot of people think tax rates have to go up. How else are we going to handle this, right? So a lot of people are very fearful of this. This would also mean higher tax rate on a lot of people's RMDs in the future. Some people are very concerned about this because it will have a big impact on how much they pay in taxes if taxes go up. As I mentioned, you can leave tax-free money to heirs this way. A regular IRA or 401k, if your heirs inherit it, they have to pay taxes on the withdrawals, and they have required minimum distributions on it. The Roth, if you leave them a Roth instead, has no taxes, okay? So they can invest for the long run, earning higher returns. That money grows tax-free, and when they withdraw it, they pay no taxes on it. Insurance against a spouse passing away earlier than expected. This is not talked about very often. I don't know why, because it is really important in terms of this decision. There's something called the widow or widower's penalty. This is what is referred to when a spouse passes away and the other spouse is hit with much higher tax rates because they now are filing single rather than joint taxes. Here's an example. You have $90,000 in income and you're married, filing jointly. If your spouse dies, your federal tax rate goes from 12 to 22%. That is not a small jump. And then your RMDs would be taxed at a much higher rate when your spouse passes away. I actually had a customer recently that had about $2 million in IRAs, and they were worried about the husband passing away earlier. So I ran a scenario for them where the husband died at 75 instead of 90. We found out that the remaining spouse, she would pay $400,000 extra in taxes if she lived to age 90 and he died early, unless she converted to a Roth. So who can convert to a Roth? Well, anybody with a traditional IRA, a SEP, a simple IRA, or a 401k. There are no income limits. No matter what your income is, you can still convert to a Roth. That is different than contributing to a Roth. There are income limits on who can contribute, but converting to a Roth from a traditional, there's no income limit. How do you do it? It's simple. It's maybe an hour of your time. Just call your financial institution or log onto your website, look for the page that says Roth conversion or something similar, or call them and just tell the rep, I want to convert to a Roth IRA. They do this all the time. Now let's get back to when it makes sense to convert to a Roth IRA. Generally speaking, you will have lower tax rates now compared to when RMDs begin. So if you look and you see that your tax rates will be low for a while and then will go up later on, you might be a good candidate. People under the age of 65, so retiring relatively young, there's a break-even time to make up for the taxes you pay up front. So the earlier you can do it, generally speaking, the better. Also, those who have a relatively high life expectancy. This gives these savings more time to compound. There's a break even because you're paying up front. So initially it hurts and you're losing in a sense. But over time, you would see that there's a break even time to make up for the taxes you paid up front. So the longer you live, the more the benefit. Oh, I also want to talk about life expectancy really quickly. This is not well understood. People see a number of life expectancy, maybe 78 years old, let's say. And they say, okay, that's what I'll put in, or maybe I'll put in 80. But this is not a great number to use because that's an average. It includes people who died before the age of 10, 20, 30. However, if a man makes to age 65, the odds of that man living to age 85 is 57%. The odds of him living to 90 are 1 in 3. For a woman making it to age 85, if she's 65 today, it's almost 70% chance. And to make it to 90, it's about 42. So my point is, don't underestimate your life expectancy when running these kinds of calculations. All right, let's keep talking about when it makes sense to convert to a Roth. I mentioned leaving money tax-free to heirs, insurance against future tax increases by Congress, insurance against a spouse passing away early. That's the widow/widower's tax. Also, it helps if you have money in a taxable account to pay for the conversion, the taxes. If you have to pull money out of the traditional IRA as you convert it, it leaves less money in the Roth to grow tax-free over time. So that actually makes a difference as well. It helps to have money in a bank account or a taxable account to pay for the taxes. All right, it's only fair to talk about when it doesn't make sense to convert to a Roth IRA. This is not for everybody. In fact, in my experience with my own customers, it really only applies to about 1 out of 4. Okay, so it's probably not as prevalent as some people think, but for those that it makes sense for, it can be extremely valuable. It doesn't make sense if your tax rates are pretty consistent over time, starting with when you retire till life expectancy. If you've already begun taking Social Security or a pension, your tax rates might already be too high. If you just have a small amount in an IRA or 401k, well, your RMDs won't be very high, so it might not make sense. Or if you're older, high 60s, let's say, or older, you just need time for it to break even. And that is a tough one if you're already in your upper 60s. You might not have enough time for the savings to compound. There's also concern about higher Medicare premiums. Your Medicare premiums move with your income, so you can jump into a higher bracket for Medicare premiums and pay a lot more money for your Medicare if your conversions are too high. This is another reason to convert while you're relatively young, or that it's important because Medicare begins when you're 65. All right, let's actually put numbers to this. Let's look at a case study I ran in WealthTrace. Very similar to a couple I talked to recently. Married, both 58 years old. They just retired. They live in California. Life expectancy is 90 years old. They're planning on spending about $95,000 a year. They have 1.7 million total in investments and about 1.5 million in a traditional IRA. Social Security is projected to be about $40,000 a year combined when they're 67. Now, I looked at this, and through my experience, I knew immediately they were a good candidate for a Roth conversion, or at least potentially. I certainly didn't write it off immediately. It was worth running scenarios on. The first thing I did was I looked at their projected tax rates over time starting today. It went, as you can see, from 10 to 12 and then jumps to 22, their marginal federal income tax rate. Jumps. That is because that's when required minimum distributions begin. So they have to take money out of their IRA, and it pushed up their income. So this is a very important item to be able to look at. Here are their RMDs. You can see they begin when they're 75. Here's the conversion scenario I ran. I knew that they would want to start this relatively or early on, like immediately, basically when they retired. Convert over 6 years, I played around with that to hone in on the optimal solution. It turns out the optimal solution is that they stay under the 22% federal bracket, and they would save over time, or sorry, the amount of money they would have extra would be about $57,000. So not bad. This is the value from them converting that IRA to a Roth. I also ran a scenario if Jane, the spouse, lives 5 more years than expected. As expected, the conversion is more valuable. They would have about $64,000 more compared to the base case of not converting. And that makes sense because, as I mentioned before, the longer you live, the more the savings get to compound over time. Now, this is a scenario where it doesn't make sense. Same couple, but now they're retiring at age 67. In this case, a Roth conversion is a really bad idea. They would have $218,000 less compared to not converting. There are 2 reasons. One, they're older now, and the savings don't have time to compound like they did. Number 2, they're taking Social Security. They're in a higher tax bracket because Social Security's kicked in, and therefore the benefit from compounding is now much less. So this really shows what I was talking about before in terms of when it does and does not make sense to convert. So to summarize what I've gone through today, converting to a Roth, it can save a lot of money. It's not for everybody though, and the timing and the circumstances are key. It is best for those who retire relatively early, certainly have low tax rate for several years, and life expectancy is relatively high. And some other things to consider: you want to leave money to your heirs tax-free. Concerned about taxes going up in the future due to Congress changing the tax laws, and insurance for a spouse possibly passing away earlier, or if there's a big age gap between the two spouses, that could make you a very good candidate for a Roth conversion. Okay, before I take questions, I do want to mention that both WealthTrace and PortfolioPilot have free trials. We have a 7-day free trial that you can sign up for, and you can get a discount if you sign up for the full version using this discount code here. For PortfolioPilot, you can get 1 month free with their discount code that you also see here. So I hope you sign up for a free trial of both, and I am ready for any questions.
Fantastic, Doug. There's a whole bunch of questions already in the chats. You see those?
Oh yeah, let me put it up. Sorry.
First one, does this apply to 403Bs as well? Or is it just 401Ks?
Definitely. Yeah. Any retirement account where you put in money and got a tax deduction when you put it in, those count. Yes. So let me look through here. How do you calculate the break-even point for converting Roth? Well, it's not simple. Whatever software you might use, of course I use WealthTrace, needs to take into account a lot of moving parts. So in WealthTrace, so you would see the break-even because we show the projected balances in the base case versus the scenario, and you'll see exactly when the Roth investment balances finally are higher than the base case. So that would be the break-even. How do you determine what your tax rate might be when RMDs begin? Well, you need something to calculate it, that's for sure. So again, it has to take into account all these moving parts. Okay. Is that savings present value or future value? The scenario I ran, it was future value, but in today's dollar terms. So inflation was stripped out, but I did not take the present value. That's the future value. That's a good question. Can you convert holdings from an existing to the Roth, or do you have to set up? So you definitely have to set up a new Roth first, okay? Usually you can move the holdings over. Usually, a 401k might be different. Some 401ks force you to turn it to cash first, and then what you do is have to rebuy the holdings. But one thing's for sure, you must set up the Roth in advance. Is there a way to calculate the loss in compounding from IRA to Roth against higher taxes and higher IRMA payments? Yes, that's exactly what we do. If you look at the future value of the difference in your investment balances, it has taken into account all the compounding that is driven by multiple things. One is higher Medicare premiums, paying higher taxes today, potentially paying higher dividend taxes, all kinds of moving parts. As I mentioned, this is not simple stuff to calculate, but in WealthTrace is all taken into account, including higher IRMA payments. That's why that one final figure of here's how much money you'll have when you're X years old, 85 years old, 90 years old, if you convert versus not converting, that number contains basically all that, all those variables and all that information. Do the after conversion versus before conversions include the tax implications? For instance, if a fund, so yes, so basically the question is, does it take into account the fact that the Roth taxes have been paid, so it grows tax free, and the withdrawals are tax free? Yes, that final number takes into account all that, absolutely. Do you include Obamacare subsidies? Well, sort of. One would have to manually enter whatever you're paying for private health insurance under age 65. Oh, I see the question. Because higher income could knock you out of the subsidy. It does not. That's a good question. It does not take that into account. So I will put that on the potential enhancement list. Thank you.
Okay, Doug, just two more questions, then we'll wrap.
Okay. Oh, does PortfolioPilot offer additional benefits that WealthTrace doesn't have? Definitely.
It's asking about discounts. Like, is there additional benefits?
Yeah. Go ahead, Alex, if you want to answer that one.
Okay, maybe it's about the features, maybe it's about the promo codes. In either case, part of the reason why we're doing this webinar series together is because we think the two softwares are extremely complementary. Right. WealthTrace goes super deep on financial planning and long-term scenario modeling, and PortfolioPilot's thinking about investment advice and tax optimization. We're actually a registered investment advisor. The AI is a registered investment advisor, basically. And so, it's giving sort of immediate feedback about asset allocation and all that. And then there's these two promo codes on screen here, giving you discounts or a full free month, off the software. And so, please reach out to either Doug or I. We're considering, we're working on an actual integration between the two softwares, and ideally, both products get way better over the coming months by us working more closely together.
Yeah. I will answer one more question because it's a very good question, then I'll be done. How come the value of converting to the Roth looks lower than the taxes you save on over the lifetime? So the taxes you save are higher than the ending investment value difference. The reason is you pay the taxes up front, right? So in the Roth, you pay the taxes up front, so that's a hit. So it takes time to make up for it. So that goes back to what I was saying. Even though you might save on total taxes paid, the Roth conversion still might not make sense because of that break-even time to make up for the fact you're paying it up front. Oh, sorry, one more. Can you calculate an optimal strategy? That's coming. Roth optimizations are coming in about 2 months, where the software will run the optimization for you and tell you the optimal strategy instead of you having to run multiple scenarios yourself. Okay, that's it.
Doug, thank you so much for your time. As always, excellent working with you. Thank you to everybody who participated. As mentioned at the start of the call, we will take this recording, edit it a little bit, put it on our YouTube channel, and then send out a follow-up in the next week with a link to future webinars as well. And hopefully we'll see you there. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the summer.
Yep, thanks everybody.